As I see it, there are sort of four stages of creation. There's planning, which is like outlining, thumbnailing, researching.
Welcome back to Inspired Inc., a show where we promote indie comic creators and become inspired by what they create and their journey of creating it. I'm your host, Brandon Bloxdorf, and today on the show, we have writer, creator, artist Tom Franck joining us. And we talk about why you don't need permission to make comics, why you need to know how to love the process, and alternative ways to promote your work. All this and so much more on today's Inspired Inc. But dude, yeah, I got to check out your books, and then noticing you've been only working on books for about 3 to 6 years. It was saying,
Yes.
what got you to like switch into this direction of comics and go into books like Titan X and a Dinosaur Christmas? Where did some of this come from for you?
Well, I live in Los Angeles. Los Angeles is a crazy place. Show business is a crazy place. And it's filled with a lot of twists and turns. And I would say it's sort of the capital of the universe for gatekeepers. And
I would see that, yeah.
Yeah, that, can result in a lot of, frustration. So, there's in any sort of creative life, there are two types of projects that you can sort of embark on as you're making a decision as to what you want to do. One are gatekeeper projects, and two is do-it-yourself projects. And, that isn't always, so black and white. It's not one or the other. There are sort of gradations in between. But sort of the more frustration you deal with gatekeepers, the more you can appreciate things that you have total control over.
Yeah.
I've always loved to draw. I went to art school. And I've always loved comics, practically since birth. So I wanted to do, more comics. And, the first issue of Jumbo Titan X took a very long time because you are doing it on your free time.
Yeah.
It's not, wake up and, get in front of the drawing board and do it until you fall asleep. There, as you say in other episodes, life happens. And it's frustrating, but also challenging and exciting when you are starting to make a comic book. No matter how big a fan of comics you are, there are so many things that you just don't understand as you're making a comic, and learning those things. A lot of times you learn those things the hard way. And
definitely.
And that's okay. It's part of the game. And what that also does is it allows you to make meaningful adjustments to your workflow. And you learn from your mistakes and how to do things faster and better the next time. And, as an indie comic creator, I have listened to all the episodes of your podcast and watched them that have been broadcast so far. And what I like about it is how the discussion isn't always about comics. Other creative disciplines are part of the conversation. And, you watch a podcast about movies, let's say, it's usually just about movies. So I like sort of the free-flowing nature, the fluidity of the conversation here. So, you make comics, you get better at it, and I've had a lot of fun doing it, getting to this point.
That's so awesome. There's so much to unpack there too. But thank you for checking out the show and, seeing everything we've done so far. It's really exciting that, just hearing that as well. So I really appreciate it. And I do love having these conversations branch out to other creative avenues, because I think comics are such an expansive art that, if you just focused on just comics, you'd be missing out so much more in the universe. Kind of like how art works in general. You kind of need to pull from everything around you in the world and apply it into that. And I think comics is a great way to bring in film and music and just animation and everything else you enjoy, because you probably loved all that no matter what. Now you get to put it on a page. and you get to kind of do these bombastic ideas that you wouldn't be able to do anywhere else, really. Is that kind of where Jumbo Titan X came from? Because it's so big, it's so like massive, and that's where, you know, I don't know how we would get that animated or on screen so quickly. Or was this like an attempt at one point in your life that you were trying to work on and it became a comic?
I had written an episode of an animated show called The Life and Times of Juniper Lee by Judd Winnick, who's a big comic writer, and he has, you know, his graphic novels are out now and doing very well. But I went to college with him, and you know, from that I had a meeting of, hey, would you want to do your own animated show? And one of the things I mentioned was kind of this, but not really. So this is, you know, but maybe I'd been thinking about it as a comic before that. It's not, there's not a real aha starting point. This is the beginning of the genesis of this project. I like to keep, well, one thing I don't sort of believe in is, and you hear this a lot in creative discussion or discussions about creativity, is elevator pitches. You know, you want to have an elevator pitch. You know, what's your elevator pitch for the thing that you have now, or all of the ideas that you have? And that sounds good, but you know, elevator pitches aren't really viable. And the reason isn't because the idea that you have isn't good enough. You know, I've had situations where you're in and you're pitching things, and the way that it sort of works is you have an opportunity to express an idea to someone, and you've worked on that idea. And let's say you've put the spit shine on it. It's ready to go. You're tight. You're not prattling on and on. You've got it concise to however much time you have, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, and a half-hour meeting. And let's say it goes well. You know, you've done the work, and the gatekeeper that you have the opportunity with goes, yeah, okay, this is good. It's what happens is there's another meeting after that all the time. And that's the more serious meeting. And kind of no matter how that goes, that is going to be based on who you are and what your reputation is. And if you're a nobody, the risk of investing in a nobody is pretty high. And most of the time it kind of falls apart. Now, you can sort of cherry pick examples of people who have come out of nowhere and, you know, pitch something and it sold, you know, but most pitches in Hollywood sell because you just did something that was hot. You know, I've sold a couple screenplays, and you know, it feels like the world is your oyster at that point, but it's hard to go into production on things. And, you know, most things that are in development don't get to production, and there's always, you know, a newer, shinier apple that is getting people's attention, you know, and you kind of wane. And if it doesn't happen quickly, it usually doesn't happen. You know, there's all sorts of stories about things that were in development for a long time and they finally came around, but it's more the exception than the rule. So, you know, just being able to what I love about doing comics is I don't need any permission at all. I do it all myself from A to Z, and no one can stop me. No one can say no. You know, and it's even when you have a partner, you know, in some creative project, like, hey, my friend, let's do this thing together. And it's not going anywhere for a long time. This guilt sets in, not of the time that you've invested, but the time that your friend has invested in this thing. And like, oh God, you know, should we just bail on this? Like, my partner, maybe they have a family, maybe they have, you know, a job, and they've given up so much. And when it's just you, you don't have that. And you're like, look, I'm still having a blast doing this. I'm seeing my improvement. It's there's a lot of advice, that I've seen in the podcast is finish stuff. It's a big problem. This has never been a problem for me, but I do understand the creative frustration resulting in people starting stuff and not making it to the finish line. Mm-hmm. And it's important to do that. As I see it, there are sort of 4 stages of creation. There's planning, which is like outlining, thumbnailing, researching. And then there's doing the work uphill. Mm-hmm. And then there's doing the work downhill. And then there is revision. And what those distinctions are is starting is you're no longer one of those people who's all talk. Like, hey, yeah, I've got a whole bunch of ideas and here they are, blah, 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 blah. You are actually starting your thing, mm-hmm. Fade in page 1, 11 by 17 piece of paper or, digitally, I'm starting this thing. And mm-hmm. that is the hardest part of it all. You're doing the work uphill, especially when you're new. When you've got your workflow understood, you know how to do it better. It's still hard, but the steepness of working uphill becomes less. And at some point, you're working on this thing. You keep hammering away at it, no matter that this is the hardest part. You get to this place where you say, "This is going to work." Because sometimes you don't get there. Sometimes you start a project that's so ambitious, or the canvas is so large that you just sort of like the problems keep presenting themselves and you don't solve them. But at some point, it's not like there's no placement for when this happens in the workflow. It's a psychological thing. It's like you're playing a game of chess and all of a sudden you're in the mid game and you're up 3 pawns. You're not up a queen and a rook. You are up 3 pawns and your opponent is really tough. So you're like, I've got this. You can still blow the game, mm-hmm. You can still mess up, but like, this is going to work. This is a chess position that can be won. And in any sort of creation, that is the single best feeling in the world. And you get to a place where, and you can still mess up here if you go too quickly, going downhill. Like, oh yeah, I've got this under control. There's still problems. You can go too fast. And then at the end, there's revision. And revision, these are all, ambiguous terms, and there's no clear delineation. And when you feel this, it says, but revision, I just look as consistency, as sort of proofreading, because a rewrite or an aesthetic change or a tonal change, or, hey, whoa, looking at this, I really should take these 2 characters and combine them into one. That revisions of that scope are mm-hmm. their own thing. They're their own creative project, and you're starting back at planning it, doing the work uphill, downhill, and revision again. So you get to revision, and then you're at the finish line. And for the life structure of someone engaging in creativity or some sort of creative project, what you want to do is you want to structure your life so you're spending as much of it as possible in phase 2, when you're actually doing the work uphill. That yields the most satisfaction. You'll get to phase 3 the most times, which is the best feeling in the world, and you'll get a better body of work, and you'll learn more. Because you got to go through all 4 phases. Mm-hmm. If you are one of those persons who like, okay, here's an idea, I start, I get frustrated, and I bail, and I start something else, you got to see stuff to the finish line. Now, that isn't to say that everyone is that way and will bail on things. Like sometimes the creative struggles that you were facing when you were doing the work uphill are so massive, and they require more meditation than keep hammering forward. You look at there's 2 examples in film that are really interesting. One is Wong Kar-wai. He was working on this massive historical piece, Ashes of Time, and it was just killing him. Like, whoa, there's all these balls in the air, and it's this big production, and accuracy and all that. And he said, you know what? I'm going to step away from this, and I'm going to make a much more light film. And he made Chungking Express. And while he was away doing that, the problems in his head gestated enough to the point where he came back to Ashes of Time and he finished them. And the same thing with the Coen brothers. They were working on, I think it's in this order, they were working on Miller's Crossing, and then they went and did Barton Fink, and then came back to Miller's Crossing and finished it. So if that's your MO, you know, it's okay to do that. But if you're the sort of person who is continually bailing once you start, you need to hammer through something, no matter how tough it is. And you need to get to the finish line. And one thing I say in anything is screenwriting or you know, comedy or making a comic is let it suck, you know?
Yeah,
It is much easier to make something good out of something that is bad than it is to make something good out of thin air. So
yes, that's great advice. Yeah.
You need to, there are these artists who say this all the time of, all I am trying to do is capture the images that I see in my head. And like Frank Quitely says that, or the children's book illustrator who won a bunch of Caldecots, Chris Van Allsburg, would say that. And I believe them. You know, I believe that they have these fully formed images in their heads that they are just, you know, artistically transcribing. And I'm not that way. I get some of it out. Like if I'm working on a page, like, okay, I know this panel is here and I know this kind of storytelling is here. Let me get out the thing that I know is working, or I feel is working, or that feels like dessert. I think in creative projects, you have the luck when you're doing it all yourself and it's not a partner, you can always have dessert first, which feels great. Like you don't have to do your comic in order. Like I want to do this page. I'm excited about this page right now. This page over here is a nightmare. Like I don't know how I'm going to pull this off, you know. But if you've got like A, B, and C, you can do C, then A, and the thing that you avoided, B, will feel much more doable once you've done A and C. And the thing
like a puzzle. You know what I mean? We're doing a complicated puzzle and you're just like, why are all these pieces just one color? Well, why don't I form the pieces around it first? And that way everything else can kind of just fall into place at that point, you know?
Exactly. But it's not like, it's not clear. It's completely personal, which pieces are the corners and which pieces are the edges. And that can change from day to day. Like, I don't want to do this page today, you know, and that's the thing when you're working with a partner, that's one of the compromises that you make. Not so much, I think it should be this way, and your partner thinks it should be this way. It's, I feel like working on this now, and your partner feels like working on this now, and one of you is going to have to lose, you know, when you're working together. And that's not, you know, and the next day you might feel the complete opposite. He might feel, you know, don't want to work on this and this. So I can't tell you how thrilling it is to do it all myself.
Oh, I can imagine. I mean, it's one of those things where, you know, I know there's a lot that goes into that too, because I'm trying to work on my own book at this point, kind of just like small issues drawing as I've been picking up drawing more. And where you're in that planning stage, the idea phase, like you were talking about, it just seems so exciting and so wild. And you're like, oh, I got this. This is in the bag. And then you sit down and start breaking things down. And you're like, it's intimidating. That blank page scares a lot of people off. Like trying to figure out what is the first step I take. Do I make a panel? Do I start with just some, you know, bad thumbnails and build upon it? But it's like kind of figure out what works best for you and just keep working towards it. When you give up and just like stop, I think that's when people lose it. And that's when people get more discouraged, just trying to like play with it enough. And even if you start and stop a couple projects, but you're right. You need to at least try to complete one, because even if it's bad, you're going to learn so much in that process. That's going to make the next project that you're going to try to complete that much easier, because you've learned a few things from this one. Yeah. So kind of just keep failing for a little bit and just know it's not going to be the best until you figure out your process. And that does take time. That does take practice. I'm working on a script right now. I got to like the first 3 or 4 pages, great, bombastic, super fun. I hit a section that I knew that needed to happen. And I was like, I don't know what to do here, but I know the rest of the book. Let me just finish this out. So you always feel like you're completing things. Even on stuff, I'll put page 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'll be on page 8. But at least I know I'm not starting with a blank page on page, 2, 3, 4 when I go back to it. That kind of helps my brain a little bit too.
Yeah, a lot of it is psychological, but one thing to remember, creativity does well. you know, is the messiness is the ally of creativity. And the more messy you can be, the more it helps you creatively. Because if you meticulously work on some page and figure out the perspective and do all the windows in the background, and then later on you realize, you know what, this page isn't really helping my story. That's bad, you know?
Yeah.
But if you've got a messy series of thumbnails with, you know, just stick figures on there, that you're more open to recognizing its true value to the project that you're trying to do, or even a, you know, a writing, you know, where it's not, you know, a screenplay. What I always like to say is bad version. What's the bad version of what I'm trying to go for? And you can say this is a bad version, and you don't put the pressure on it of it trying to be good. Like, save good for later. Like, there's nothing more valuable. Like, let's say you're working on these thumbnails that are stick figures and not great works of art, but you're like, yeah, whoa, this is what I'm going for. You know, moving this stick figure over here to this panel and having the perspective be here. Yeah, that is what I'm going for. And the drawing is so rough that no one but you would be able to even recognize what's going on. That's still a good feeling, you know?
Yeah.
And turning that into something that people can recognize is exciting on a motivational level, you know, you want to make it good now. Like, okay, I figured out, you know, Hitchcock would always say that when he was making a movie, once the storyboarding was complete, the hard part was over, you know, just because it was all in his head and he had it all worked out. You know, that the storyboards aren't a movie, but in his mind they were. And that, you know, it just shows you the different sort of creative processes that people have in all sorts of disciplines is, you know, that's clearly not Kubrick, you know, who would have actors take hundreds of shots and wouldn't figure out, like, hey, yeah, I should go with classical music for 2001 until after he saw a test screen. You know, there's making creative decisions early and making creative decisions late. And in comics, you have the luxury of all of those, of like, I can't tell you, like, there's a page that's finished, colored, lettered, you know, all set to go. And you realize, hey, you know what? These panels should be flipped. And that you can do that, especially when you're working digitally, you know, and that's, you know, a real game changer for me is the first issue is completely hand drawn. After that, I've been doing it on my iPad. And
cool.
You know, Procreate on your iPad, like, you can do it anywhere. Like, here's how it changes your life. You know, the joke that I like to make is comic creators will not fully understand the advantages of working on the iPad until you finish a page on the toilet. And then it all becomes crystal clear, the benefits that you have. It's like, you know, you meet people like, hey, yeah, I got a friend, or you go to a meeting and the other person's late. That's annoying, right? This is your time. Yeah. It's no longer annoying in my life because I can work on my comic now whenever that happens. So
that's the best way to look at it. And that's the most positive way of just like having your art on your hand at all times. Like, it doesn't matter what thing happens in life that makes you kind of stand around for something. You're like, well, I could get going on work right now. You know, like, you're never away from your drawing table. And that's very admirable. It's kind of like a writer always having a notebook and a pen in his pocket, that you're writing down your scripts, you're writing down that dialogue wherever you are.
Yeah. There was a thing in the world of video games for computer, you know, PC video games. Maybe you've heard of it, called the boss key. Where you'd hit the boss key whenever your boss was showing up at work and make it seem like you're at work. You know, some spreadsheet would come up. And the iPad is a much better boss key of, like, no one's around and pull your iPad out and get some work done. So
I love that. That's the best.
Yeah.
Dude, that's great. And you know, these books you've been working on and you put so much time and energy and they're beautiful. And I've noticed that you haven't crowdfunded some of them. What's your what is your, thinking and mindset by just publishing them and not going the crowdfunding route, and doing it this
I
way?
mean, yeah, I talk about the 4 stages of creating something. Stage 5 is definitely promotion. Like you finish the thing, and if you do it yourself, you got to promote it. And there's no, unlike a live performance, like music or comedy or something, there needs to be synchronicity in the preparation and the performance itself and the promotion. Because like if you're on the road and like doing all the songs and then the show comes around and there's no one there, that's not going to go well. And if you promote it well, but you haven't done the work and you show up and you embarrass yourself, that's bad too. And, the great thing about comics is that the promoting doesn't have to be in sync with the creation or even the release of it. I haven't really figured out, or I haven't put a lot of time, as I said before, I'm trying to spend as much of my life as possible in phase 2 of doing the work uphill. And that kind of fits in on a promotional level of like, I can figure it out later. And if my books sell later, I have them,
Yeah.
And part of the reason I've been holding off is, I go to, I'm into a lot of different things. And part of my fear in this conversation is I want to make sure that we talk about comics, because it's really easy for me to take a left-hand turn and just go off on a tangent of something that isn't related to what this podcast is ostensibly about. So at Comic-Cons, this is what you've got. You've got people in Artist Alley, people in, creator-owned book sections. And they, you walk through and they've got their pitch for their comic. And the goal there is to get people interested in their work, get, the industry interested in their work. Like, hey, wow, Image really likes my book and they want to pick it up or whatever it is. And then get their IP to a point where they can get merchandising from it. And this weekend in Anaheim is a big convention called Designer Con, which is mostly, which is like designer vinyl, which is a big thing right now. And a lot of designer vinyl toys are not character toys. They're just cool, creations and designs that people have come up with and made a toy. And my big idea with Jumbo Titan X is I want to do both, and I want there to be synergy in the way that they influence each other and promote each other. So I have a Jumbo Titan X vinyl toy. So here it is. This is a test pull.
Oh, that's so cool.
And I'm waiting for the the molds are done. They're back from Asia. They're in Colorado right now, and he's casting them. Because look, you go to Artist Alley at any Comic-Con, and it's tough to make your money back selling comics. The table costs. This is a higher ticket item, and I'm kind of like waiting on a promotional level to push both once I have this to sell. And, it's interesting, it's good going to conventions because I've got, you're competing against a lot of fan art at conventions, artists who are out there and like, hey, here's my funny print of, I don't know, Rick and Morty meets Barbie or whatever. I'm not knocking that, but that's a thing. And when you are like, you've got prints of your own character, it's not that has zero meaning to people walking the aisles. That's a hard sell. But here's the thing. Here's one thing I learned. I made trading cards of a lot of the robots from Jumbo Titan X.
That's so cool.
So I made this set of 9. I'm just like, what the hell? Trading cards are a thing. People are really open to buying trading cards of things that they know nothing about, more so than prints. So that's something I wouldn't have expected. So in this upcoming year, I really want to double down on trading cards when I go to cons.
They're
but
booming
just like,
again. That's like a nostalgic 90s thing that we're all kind of bouncing back to, is that trading card aspect. I love that.
yeah. So, like I haven't, like, look, with Jumbo Titan X, I'm getting some sales, you know.
Mhm.
Here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to be such an amazing podcast guest that just talking about it on podcasts, you know, yields more sales than any Kickstarter I could have done. But like, nursing a Kickstarter campaign is a lot of work. And
It is.
I'm,
Yeah, it's a pain. I'm planning out the next year. It
I'm
is a
not,
lot of tediousness.
like, if I have to, if I can avoid that, I'd like to. I
Mhm.
understand it's, but, or at least put it off, like as
Yeah.
long as I can. I might have
Mhm.
to at some point, but look, I got 3 issues of my comic out that I like, and
Yeah.
uh, putting out a good product, you know, it can sell itself at some point.
Mhm.
I'm only so naive about that, but the short answer is I'm not anxious to jump into it, and I haven't figured it out. Like, I talk to people about it, and they'll say things like, "Oh, you want to launch a Kickstarter campaign after, or any crowdfunding campaign
Mhm.
after tax season comes out, you know, in May,
Mhm.
let's say. That's a good time to launch one." So here, I'll show you this if I can.
Yeah.
So this is the second toy. This guy will debut in issue 4. Here, let's see. Let me just tilt the camera. But I'm excited about this design.
I think that's just like a big goal of any creator too, is just having like an action figure of their creation. Like, what a win at that point. There's nothing more exciting, I think, than that, than other than like holding your book, as it comes into print.
Well, I am a very long time toy collector. Here, let's see. Can I do this?
Oh, that's so cool.
So
Dang.
he's going to show up, and robot design is something that I really embrace,
Mm-hmm.
obviously. And when you're thinking about a toy, it's tricky. Here, is that too low?
Oh, no. Yeah.
Because you've got to think about joints. Like, I spend the amount of time that I think about designing ankle joints is not really sane. That's too
That
low.
Oh, no, too low. Yeah, and like, what are some of your biggest robot influences? Like, I see, like Rusty from Frank Miller and everything back there.
Yeah,
I think that's some
I
Voltron
made this
stuff.
myself.
Oh,
I
really?
do. Yeah, I do. For Jumbo Titan X, I did learn Tinkercad, which is a
Okay.
free online 3D program.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't consider it cheating at all to take the 3D model of robots and pose them, and then either put it on its own layer and trace over it, or just, a lot of times I'll freehand it,
Mm-hmm.
because robots are harder to draw. They're fun to design. It's just like,
Yeah.
oh, wow, here's a cool robot over there. But being on model with robots is way harder than characters, because you
Oh,
got
I
all
get
this detail, and like the folds
odd
here
shapes.
are
Yeah.
not symmetrical to this, and like, you can wing it, and it doesn't have to be perfectly aligned. Whereas everything
Mhm.
on a robot is, if you're designing a symmetrical robot, which most are, they're a friggin' it's a challenge. But I like that challenge. That's a game I want to play. I want to, like, even with toys, you'll see with vinyl toys, a lot of people do monsters with large heads, and
Mhm.
the reason for that is painting. When it comes time to paint it, you can get an airbrush out, and things don't have to line up perfectly. It's just
Oh,
like, hey,
yeah.
there's these patterns here. Whereas robots, straight lines. This color ends here, and this new one begins here, and you got to figure out a way to paint it either with masks or by hand. And so that's why there's less robot designer vinyls than kaiju monsters. And a lot of times they have big heads because they're easier to paint. So I'm making things hard for myself by doing robots and small heads because I like that proportion more. But
Mhm.
I'm down. I don't care if it's harder. I'm ready to be my own sweatshop. And I like the idea of being a one-man franchise. That's what I'm that's the goal in my mind, and it excites me.
And that's
so
what you
what was
need
the
as an
question?
indie creator. I don't even remember at this point. That was such a good explanation for what you're doing.
Influences. Yeah, that's a big
Oh yes,
answer.
influence. Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of people know me as a toy collector. You know, I had a website in the 90s called Cool Japanese Toys. I was sort of part of the movement because that was really exciting. Like Japanese toys were so, companies were so prolific with the amount that they put out that it was really confusing as to what was actually released for a long time. And a lot of good Japanese toy scholars, you know, figured it all out. And because, whoa, this character was made in this vinyl size and had 2 missile firing ones. So when you're looking at the history of Japanese robots and mecha, you know, you've got sort of Astro Boy, Gigantor, Tetsujin 28 in the 60s, and there's a bunch of Ultraman, you know, tokusatsu shows. And then you've got Mazinger Z in 1972, which is by Go Nagai, and he's the guy. And it's difficult. So that genre, that was the first piloted robot. You know, Giant Robo, Gigantor were controlled from the outside. So you begin with him in the hover piloter coming down, and it was such a smash hit that, you know, they say in Hollywood is a race to second place, and that's even more true in Japan. Like there were so many shows that came out after Mazinger Z, many created by Go Nagai himself. You know, Get a Robo, which he did with Ken Ishikawa, Steel G, Grandizer, Grozier X. You know, there's this giant, and it's difficult to understand how huge the super robot genre was in the 70s. Now, when you look at the 70s, you've got to look at 2 things. There were more children than ever before. You know, you've got the kids of baby boomers, and you sort of look at spikes of, you know, kids. You're seeing towns with high schools that are splitting into north-south or east-west because there's so many kids, right? So you've got, you know, toys were huge in the 70s, and cartoons were huge in the 70s because you've got this giant market. But also you got to remember, this is before video games, okay? You know, late 70s, you've got Atari, and then video games took a giant dent into toys. And toys had free reign in the 70s, pretty much. Yeah. And there were more kids than ever before. So you had all of these robot anime shows that were translated into different countries. Some of them did well here. You know, we had Force 5, you know, Voltron came here later, you know, in the 80s. But in Mexico, in Arabic countries, in Europe, shows like Grandizer, Great Mazinga were huge, were giant. So super robots had a global impact that is really not understood today. And my comic is a complete throwback to that time. You know, the color of Jumbo Titan X, this orange, that is specifically chosen to reflect the color of cars in the 70s. This orange, like, did you in Boogie Nights?
Yes.
Dirk Diggler,
yeah.
When he gets that orange Corvette, that's not made up. You know, my parents had an orange Datsun 260 and an orange pickup truck. So this is intentional. This is not a palette by mistake.
It literally like reminded me of photos I've seen from like family photos. I swear, right when I saw that, it just had like a nostalgic like burst in my brain, and I couldn't nail it where I've seen it before. But yeah, that's exactly what it is. I think my uncle had a car that color, and I think that's where it got my attention right away. That's so awesome. That's brilliant.
You know, and I like, you know, one of the advantages that comic creators have today, and, you know, if people out there, you know, one of the biggest challenges in making a comic and drawing a comic is design. And when we think of design, we're just like, oh, what should the character's costume be? But you got to design everything. And like, I have a Pinterest board that is nothing but lamps. And I think lamps are a big thing in environment, but I love looking at like 70s lamps and furniture. And I'm a big fan of Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me, the art by Rosemary Valero O'Connell, and she won the Eisner Award for Best Penciler Inker. And I know that seems like an odd influence, but I love the way that she draws plants. And not just the way that she draws plants and all flora, but how much it adds to the environment of the characters. Like, so anytime I'm adding plants into a scene, that's because of her.
That's awesome. That's super cool hearing those little Easter eggs in that too. I'm going to go look back on some stuff and like really admire some of like the extra things in there. That's so fun. And I mean, it's cool hearing like how deep your influences run with like a passion you have and how you've brought that to life over years. And it's taken time, you know what I mean? And that's the thing I think a lot of people forget about is like the time it takes from the process you're talking about, from, you know, stage 1 and working into stage 2 into stage 3. But now it's pretty much happening for you. What do you have planned past these next couple issues?
Sure. Well, it's like if you look at manga, I think a big issue with it, you know, part of its success and ultimately one of its shortcomings is I'm not convinced that manga creators know how things are going to end. And that's okay. You know, it's not like in a movie, you need to know how it ends. Like if you're like enjoying it up to the, you know, last 10 minutes, and then the answer is like, let's say it's a mystery, you know, and you're like, oh, wow, I'm really biting my nails on this. And then it kind of ends and you're like, oh, that's what it was all the time.
Yeah.
The net decision is like, I don't like this. But in ongoing story, whether it's a comic or a TV series, like look at how many people loved Lost while it was on and were disappointed by the ending.
And that's
like, it doesn't matter. You know, they made their money like leading up to it. You know, a lot of Game of Thrones. Like how many people were complaining about the ending of Game of Thrones? But it was a giant franchise beforehand. So that's really kind of a non-issue. And in manga, like I don't 900 episodes of One Piece, 1,000. Like they don't know.
Wild.
Naruto. It's all about sustainability, and it's not necessarily about the ultimate conclusion. With this, like I do have a plan. I know exactly how it's going to end. There are going to be 12. You know, one thing I like to do is like issue 1. When I open it up, I call it. I'm making a joke. It says issue 1, the pilot episode. And it's about who's going to be a pilot, but that's also what you call the first episode of any TV series, a pilot.
I love that.
So we're calling everything episodes in this. So episodes 1 through 11 are going to be comic books, and it will end with episode 12. But my plan is, and what I want to do is I want it to be a 4-minute animation, which I have storyboarded out in my head every single frame. And it will have no words. There'll be no dialogue. And it will be set to music entirely. So
I love it.
I got to figure it out. And that's something, you know, you talk about promotion, right? And like, hey, you're not doing a Kickstarter. Unlike my comic book, that is something that could go viral on the internet. And that is by design. Like if I do this the way that I want it to, like, oh, wow, this is great. And then retroactively, everyone buys the issues before. Like if the pot of gold doesn't need to happen as you're releasing each issue. You know, you can sort of divide. Like, look, if I don't make any money on the comics, but like the trade paperback of issues 1 through 4 are a big seller, good. Like, the first 4 issues were not a failure. Let's say I didn't really make these comics at all. You know, let's say these didn't exist, and I finished issue 4 or issue 5. And then I released that as volume 1, and that did well. You know, there was a book, what was it called? Maybe The Long Tail. Where it was talking about, like on Amazon, someone wrote a novel about like rock climbing. And the novel came out and was not a success by any measure. And then 9 years later, another book came out about rock climbing, and that was a success. And because of that, if you like this, you might like this. The first one, which was a failure, sold like hotcakes. So that's part of the exciting times that we're living in. You don't need like synchronicity with releases and sales don't can happen in any number of ways that are unpredictable and also not part of the business model or business structure of the past.
I love that. And I think that's something a lot of indie creators need to hear, because I feel like a lot of people may even feel like giving up if their first issue, second issue doesn't do too well, or like they're, Kickstarters. You do your first issue, it's going to probably be very good and successful. Issues 2, 3, 4 may slump down a little bit and progress slumps down. You may feel discouraged, but it's not about that. It's about getting your work done so that you can eventually make it. Like just getting it in print and having it in your hand, that means longevity. And that way, like what you're saying, you could backtrack, it can make an effect, and it may not matter this year, but in 2 or 3 years, 5 years, it may be the most important book at that year because people finally have caught up to it. And so it's that plan you have, very unique, very well thought out. And I think it's a really good option for people to consider thinking outside the box when it comes to marketing, when it comes to how their book sales are and how indie comic sales are. Not a lot of creators go your route, but I think it is a very valued option that people should consider.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of interesting promotional examples in the world. Did you? It was very interesting watching Nick Pitara with Axe Wielder John. This completely organic thing happened where he's like, "Hey, I'm working on Axe Wielder John, and here's what he looks like, and here's some pages." And he's a big creator and he's amazing, but other creators started doing fan art of Axe Wielder John, and it completely took off. And I can't imagine how much just notoriety that exploded out of the character from. Nick Pitara's fan base isn't going to be exactly the same as, I don't know, Nick Darrington's or any of those other Phoenix comic art guys. So it really seemed to pick up steam in a organic and exciting, because it just feels like we're being spammed all the time, by everything. And even stuff that you like, it's just like showing up in your feed and look, we're doing this show on StreamYard, right? So I'm like, okay, let me check out StreamYard, make sure it's right. Like StreamYard ads are just littering my Instagram now, and I can't escape it. So when there's stuff, you're like, yeah, I'm on board with that. So I did, one idea is I did print out blank cover versions of Jumbo Titan X. And one thing I would feel good about is, getting those in the hands of artists and having them do that. Or even if it was just a fan art, artist say, hey, here's my Jumbo Titan X. That would be cool. That's something I could get behind. And, the thing with robots is when we look at when robots doing cool things, it's always like, a schnick sort of change. And then something happens, like in the Iron Giant, when the Iron Giant turns into the evil battle giant, his hand comes out and his arm opens up and this pecking machine gun comes out, which is so beautifully inefficient. It's this disc and it's got these things that goes like this. Because I have the robots designed in 3D, if I could rig it and set up little GIFs of robots doing cool, 2-3 second things like chunk, chunk, that would be a promotional thing that I could get behind that I think I would hope would go viral and get people, just shared and all that. So there's certain, you've always got to say, whether you're creating or whether you're promoting, what are the games that I want to play and what are the games that I don't want to play? Because it's all games and they're all going to be hard. Even if you're like, hey, yeah, I want to, become big making reaction videos on YouTube because that's easy. Okay, you can film yourself and you can do a reaction. There's a million things that you're competing against. So it's going to be tough to stand out. And the more you sort of figure out yourself and here's something that I do. Because I'm insane, I keep a email. I'm big on email drafts that I just keep saving over and over again. I have one called Things in Stories That I Like. And
cool.
like, whether it's a comic or a movie, hey, I watched this. I like that storytelling thing. I like the way that happened. And whenever you're making any sort of list like that to sort of find yourself, one rule that you need to give yourself is it is completely okay to write the same thing down twice. Like, you never edit yourself. Like, oh, well, did I already say this before? I don't want to put the thing on again. Like, because that's telling you about yourself, that you like this thing so much that it came to you independently again. And, you know, I like it. And the list is really long right now, but I'm like, okay, so this is what in storytelling I think is good. And another thing for creators is it is completely okay to be cynical, like to say the emperor has new clothes. Like a lot of, you know, I just think there's a big spike in like, hey, yeah, everyone's got to be positive and just believe in yourself and overcome fear and all that. Like, here's another list you can make. Things that are overrated. You know, here's things. Oh, this thing, there's all the emperor has no clothes. Make a list of nude emperors. Okay, things. Whoa, the public is just getting it wrong here. That's a poser. That's a sham. That shouldn't be thing. And you go and you make the answer to that. You fix it. You know, that is completely in your control, and that's great motivation. Like when High Noon came out. Howard Hawks hated High Noon. He's just like, yeah, Gary Cooper's running around. He's asking everyone for help, and no one will give it to him. So as an answer to that, he made Rio Bravo, where John Wayne is like, everyone's begging to help. And he's like, no, I don't want to help. You know, I don't need your help. You'll just get in my way because I'm too, you know, that was Howard Hawks' answer to that. No, you can like both movies, but that response is valid. Like, and in anything, in music, like, oh my God, this band is awful. I hate them. I can't believe they're so popular. This is what people should be listening to. And we can do that in comics.
Go and make it.
Like,
yes. I love that.
It's good. You're right. The community is very supportive, and it should be. But you don't have to like everything. And you can think, you know, look, don't go on someone's social media and trash them, you know?
Yeah.
But
have opinions. You know, like, yeah, no, like you said, know yourself, like understand your diet. You know what I mean? Like I've said it on the show before, where diet is more than what you eat. It's what you consume. And, you know, your entertainment, your media, your comics, your, you know, television, all that, that's part of what you're doing. And so you have opinions on what you do or don't like in your taste, and embrace that, you know, and take what you don't like. I love finding the answer of stuff I don't like. I did that with comics. I wasn't happy with what I was reading. I wasn't getting what I was, you know, wanting out of a comic. So you make the comic you want to read and make. And that's the most solid advice I've heard in a while, too. So, I mean, I admire the hell out of that. Thank you for that.
You know, and the thing is, you make comics and you try, you're motivated and you try hard. Like, here's an idea. I'll show it to you. Like, we recognize, you know, there's a big danger whenever you're doing everything yourself of you can become Tommy Wiseau, you know, because you can, who made The Room, you know, he's the director. And then there was the movie made about how horrible he is, or The Disaster Artist.
Disaster Artist.
Okay. Yeah. So, you know, there's a big thing of, you know, like living in Los Angeles, when you hear for creators, you've just got to overcome fear. And that's true. But like in LA, everyone moved to LA here. So like everyone overcame a lot of fear to be here. So it's kind of like Chinese to me. You've got to overcome amateurish mistakes. And when you have no gatekeepers or partners, there's a big risk of you not recognizing your own amateurish mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
So you do need a good network of people to help you out and give you feedback. And, you know, I'm very lucky to have that. And in getting feedback from people, there is also a system that you should have in place chronologically for how you do it. You know, perhaps people who are going to give you the most softballs, you do first, and then people who are going to be the most harsh, you do last. And it's not just to protect yourself emotionally. it will give you the opportunity to, these harsh critics, is it really harsh, or are they just doing it to sound imperious? Because if you're getting the same note over and over again, it's a problem, and you need to change
there's
it.
an issue. Consistency is a big thing with that.
And the thing is, people who work in TV writers are, in my mind, the most suspect note givers, because writers run TV. Screenwriters have no control in cinema. It's all the director, or the producer. But TV is an outgrowth of radio, and writers ran radio, and TV. Writers on TV become showrunners, so they have a lot of power, and everyone wants their positions. So they like the sound of their own voice, and they like to say. There's something in Amadeus. There's two scenes in Amadeus. One is Salieri comes in with this march, and Mozart listens to it once and can recreate it, and that's part of showing his mastery. And he fixes it, and he's able to, and he turns it into some famous Mozart piece. But that just shows you how instantly he can get something presented to him and improve upon it. And that's what gatekeepers in Hollywood and people in power feel that they are doing all the time, and it's nonsense most of the time. They're giving notes to give notes. It's not. You're solving a problem that doesn't need to be fixed. And then creators also in Amadeus have this thing where the king feels like there's too many notes, and which ones should you take out? It's the king is being a complete fool, and we feel as creators that we're Mozart and we're being given ridiculous notes. So you've got to be aware of mistakes that can be made, and you've got to keep yourself in check and keep your ego in check. And it's hard, and sometimes you will make mistakes, but it's not always black and white. There's not always one artistic answer for something. You can, a lot of different things can work. And in comics, you got to make a decision. Film development takes forever, and people are the 25th draft, and is it really, or are you just spinning your wheels or something like this? In comics, you look back and you realize, they could have done that different, but it's okay. You just got to keep moving forward, and that's part of the excitement of it. Is you don't, your anguish over it ends at some point, and you've got to anguish over the new thing. But we realize how we're not perfect. We're not, and it's not a crime. Like as a comic artist, it's not a crime to not be John Byrne. And that's okay. And I feel like I'm improving. One problem of being an indie comic creator is you do improve and you do get better, and you've got the issues splayed out at your table, and people are going to buy issue 1 more than issue 3 or 2, even though those are better. Even though you've improved, and you're like, that's not really
in every way possible. You've probably improved too. Like, you want them to read your best work. Even with podcasting, I'm always like, listen to the newest episode, because I know that's my best thing I've done. And it's just like, no, but all this is good. It's all great, but you know how much better you've perfected your craft, and but how hard you've worked to work on that.
Yeah, even when you're working on something, like I wanted to do like a propaganda page in issue 1. So I did this, which is sort of like, one of those Russian propaganda things, advanced, and I'm using font, Russian font. And I'm trying really hard here to do this. And I'm the arms race, and I'm showing arms here. So as I'm doing it this whole time, I could not stop thinking about how much better Dave Johnson would kill me on that. Because just with Red Sun, and this is completely in his wheelhouse, and my best effort is not going to touch what he would do with that same concept. And you gotta just do it anyway. I still tried, and maybe I could do it better now. But that there are frustrations in being an indie comic creator, no matter where we are.
And it's accepting your stage of where you are as an artist too. As soon as you accept what's coming out, and that it's your best, that's one of the best things I've heard too. And that's what got me to really accept my art, and to help me pursue trying to make my own comic was just accept where I'm at, and I'm going to be growing. As long as I'm working on it, I'm going to grow. So just keep working on it, working on completing your story, because that's going to give you the biggest growth. And I mean, Tom, this has been full of great insight and information. And I can't wait for listeners to like replay this episode a few times to get all the references and to do all the research of the things you've dropped. Because I think you've given us a plethora of things to look into and to Google and to watch and to just, study. And I love being able to have references like Amadeus and whatnot. I'm very familiar with that film. Such a great
Yeah.
piece. I actually like the regular version more than director's cut too. It's a really good comparison. But just having all this arsenal to build upon, to try out, to taste like within our diet to see if it works for us too. And to really open our minds and experiment a bit more and challenge ourselves to continue growing. And where can we find you, and what are you going to be up to in 2024 so that listeners can tune in and check out your books? And it is listed on the CWS bookstore. We'll have a link below, but where else can we see you?
Well, I'm on Instagram. I'm sure you'll put that in there at Jay Mashinder. Jay Mashinder, I'm sure that's confusing. I'm sure, what is that? That is short for Jumbo Mashinder, which are the line of toys from the 70s that I collect that came into the U.S. as the Shogun Warriors. So that's what that means. But I'm mostly on there. I was on Twitter. Like a lot of people, I'm on a lot less. But, I'll just be posting stuff there for the most part. I am going to do some conventions. I'm not completely sure which ones. I'm from Massachusetts. I really like the Wicked Comic-Con in August. So I'll probably go to that. But like in terms of tabling, I just got to wait for the release of this guy to be done. And then I will look to, I'm a big fan of Linktree on Instagram for posting links to stuff. So like when this episode goes live, I'll put it there. I'll work on my promoting more in 2024, but I'm really excited about diving into issue 4 right now.
I'm so excited to see more of this. And however we can help to promote those books and get them out there, because it's some great stuff. And it just brought me back to so many people I want to show this book to, because they would love and appreciate for the style, for the characters, for what you're doing with it. And I just love hearing your passion behind it all and how it's all come together. So thank you so much for joining us today.
It's been so much fun. Like, look, you've got another episode premiering today. It's not live yet, but I'll be watching it when it goes online in a couple hours.
I'm so excited for you to do it. And thank you for keeping up with the show. I really appreciate it so much. And for all of our listeners, thanks for hanging. Keep making comics and stay inspired. Looking for high quality printing, fast turnaround, and the industry's best customer service? Look no further than Comix Wellspring. Trusted by thousands of indie comic creators, Comix Wellspring is proven to be the go-to comic book printer. So when you're ready to bring your comic books to life, go to comicswellspring.com and be sure to check out one of the best platforms to sell your physical and digital comics online, the CWS bookstore. Remember to subscribe, hit that notification bell to see our lives come out twice every single week on YouTube and podcast platforms. And also tag us when you share your favorite episodes and moments from the show. And remember, creators, thanks for hanging, keep creating, and stay inspired.